Hey y'all, welcome back to Eddie's Little Homestead. One of the biggest problems that I've had recently is finding an effective way to load logs onto the mill. Up until this point, I've been using crap like this. So I've been searching around on Marketplace, and yesterday I found this abomination of fabrication, nice set of forks that we're gonna make to fit onto the farm all. This thing looks like the Wild Billy welded it, but we're gonna set it right. I mean, I'm by no means a professional welder, but if Ray Charles and Helen Keller had a baby and that baby grew up, went to welding school and started welding, that baby fabricated this. Most modern tractors and skid steers use like a quick attach system. It's interchangeable from one machine to another. But we don't have that luxury from 1965. So basically what we gotta do is make sure that this end here matches up with these ends right here. Now the distance between the tabs on this are 45 inches from inside to inside. We've got about 49.5 on the machine side. Our pinholes are the same size up top. They're a little big down there. That's okay, I think we'll be able to sleeve them out or just ignore it. So the first thing we're gonna do is separate the bagging plate from the forks. There we go. So yeah, this thing was not made all that well in the first place, but it was only $200 and it's dang near impossible to find something that'll be a direct fit to that loader. So it's still worth it on my end. Next up, we're gonna cut this thing in half. We're gonna cut off all unnecessary crap that's just kind of hanging out on here. Time to let her wobble. And there we go. It's now in 2 halves and 4.5 inches wider apart than it originally was. For the torch settings, I had the oxygen at 40 and the acetylene at 6, and we ended up with a pretty clean cut. Not too much extra slag. So now we obviously need to put some metal between there because they gotta be together. Fortunately for me, my buddy Jeff gave me this backhoe attachment. It's old, it's soaked in old hydraulic fluid and on a pile of dried leaves. It's the perfect metal to cut off and fill the gap with. All right, so we got everything cut. Well, I take that back. We got everything cut for the backside. So now we're gonna clean everything up. We've got a 40 grit flap disc that we're gonna use for that. So I'd give our prep work on this a solid D+, but it doesn't really matter because we're gonna be running a 6011 rod. The old 6011, the farmer's best friend. Got good penetration. Even on rusted, painted, whatever metal. And it's perfect for this application. We don't want it to be pretty. We're sticking Gorilla Welds on this bad boy. It's gonna be big and ugly and strong. All right, so before we actually go into the full-blown welding of all this, we're gonna get everything aligned as good as possible and then tacked into place. If I were to just start running beads around here, I'm gonna warp everything about it. There's so much heat that's going into that. So I wanna tack in a few places around it, recheck my measurements, and then go for it. This is the time where patience pays off because you'll only screw it up once. Ask me how I know. Yeah. And there we are. Now's a good time to mention I'm proud to be y'all's representative for the Helen Keller School of Welding. We just ran beads on beads on beads. Unfortunately, my camera's fixing to die, so we'll come back to y'all tomorrow. All right, so here's where we're at. I needed a plate to fill in the gap on the backside. Stole that right there. And then I promptly figured out that it was not quite wide enough. I got about a 1/2 inch gap on each side that I need to fill in, but that's fine, it's no big deal. So normally what I do on a terrible fit up like this is I would do a root pass with a 6011 just to make sure everything's bonded. I got one side tied into the other. And then I would do a whole bunch of hot passes with a 7018. 6011 is a fast freeze rod, which means once the rod moves away from the pool, it cools very quickly. 7018 is a fast fill rod, which means it burns the rod down pretty quick. You got a lot more liquid in the pool and you can fill in a lot better. Those are just the basic descriptions. I don't need the actual welders beating me up in the comments because I am not one. The problem is the flux on a 7018 rod needs to be real dry, and normally they're actually stored in rod ovens that are like, I think 250 degrees or something. something. So I don't keep 7018 on hand because I don't have a rod oven and I don't do that much welding. If I want to run 7018, I got to buy new. I just buy them in small packs. I didn't feel like doing it because I got a bunch of 6011. So let's burn some rods down. A couple people in the past, especially actual welders, have mentioned my rig right here. This is a 1973 Lincoln SA200. If a modern engine-driven welder is a Ferrari, this thing is a restored antique Cadillac, man. I just love this machine. It's got a 4-cylinder gas Continental engine, and while it may be old, these are still very common pipeliner rigs. It's just so dang reliable. And there we go. Now, I'm not gonna get too far into like exactly what I did, but long story short, did my root pass and my hot pass just as stringers, just basically dragging that rod on down through. Then when I got to the top to cap it, I basically just did a small little series of circles and stacked them all up. One of the things that I like about the 6011 rod is that you can learn as you go. You can see what you did wrong. So if you take a look like right here, these little tails on there, I got running just a little bit too fast. I really want this to look like a stack of dimes. I've got a very small amount of undercut right underneath there, and then you can see every little skip everywhere that it didn't quite go how you wanted it to. It ain't perfect and it probably wouldn't pass any test, but well, it's better than what Ray Charles did over here. And that's held up so far. So the last thing I'm gonna do is basically just go around to like little spots that look like they could use it, run a few more beads, and then we'll put it back on. We have a problem. So when I measured from inside to inside of the outer tabs that go on there. Did great. It's dead on. It's within like a 1/16 of an inch. You know what I didn't do? Measure how far apart the tabs were. So now we're about to do something I don't want to do. And now we'll try it again. I ain't gonna show you all those welds. I'm in a hurry, it's gonna be dark soon, and well, a weave like that looks like it belongs in a Tyler Perry movie. And there we go. Before we go, I'm gonna show you all a quick trick to take care of the crappier welds, you know, make sure that they're all good and safe and not gonna break on you. Make sure if you got any pinholes from porosity, you just, you know, make sure you fill them in real good for safety. Much better. Now it looks like brand new. All right, y'all, she's done. It at least holds me on the tip of the forks, so that's good. We'll be putting it through its paces, but I'm not doing that right now. Well, because this video is already taken long enough. Either way, I'm happy with the result. Y'all, I can't say this enough times, but if there is one skill in the world that you should try and pick up if you have the opportunity, it's learning how to weld. Because if you know how to weld, anything you got can become anything you want. Grand total, this entire project took me longer than it should have. It was right around the 10-hour mark total. But if you figure I spent $200 on the forks, probably another $50 in welding rods and gas, $3 worth of paint, y'all really can't complain. And this is gonna be an absolute game changer for us. And it's not just helpful for loading logs. With this setup, I'll be able to put firewood in IBC totes and be able to move them around like that. I'll be able to carry materials around the farm without having to hand load it. This thing is awesome, dude. So for 250 bucks and a long day's work, I'm happy. At some point, I'm probably gonna lose these fork extensions because, well, these forks aren't very beefy in the first place. I may put the other forks on here. That'll take its own level of fabrication, but for right now, I'm happy. As always, I hope y'all enjoyed and I hope you learned something. Don't take any of my welding advice too seriously. I'm not a professional, just a hillbilly who ain't got the money to pay for good stuff. I love you, and God bless. Environmentalists want me to drive an electric tractor, but how many penguins were killed building a brand new set of forks?